This is Things Police See, First-Hand Accounts, with your host, Steve Gould.
Welcome to the podcast that interviews active and retired police officers about their most tense, bizarre, and sometimes humorous moments on the job. It is I, Old Ginger Face, here with you as always, everybody. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here. Thank you to the YouTube Sergeant Steve fans that have slid over into the podcast and are enjoying the long-form content. I get a lot of messages from you guys that you're plugging into the podcast when you're working out or driving in the car and you're digging it. So that makes me very happy, and I truly appreciate that. And to the longtime listener, if you listen to a lot of episodes and you think, how can I give old Stevie Boy some support, you can do that through the Patreon link, which is in the show notes. There's a few different levels, but if you pick Sergeant or above, you will be given a shout out on the show by yours truly. All right, guys, excited for today's episode. I have I've been getting a lot of the big dogs on here, and this guy's got he's got one hell of a career, and he's still active. So he's 32 years in law enforcement total. He was the chief of police. He was also assistant chief of police for the homicide division. He was detective. He was a bike cop. He was a state CO. He's now the sheriff of St. John County in Florida. He also is retired from the National Guard, where he did 25 years. Let me bring on the great Sheriff Robert Hardwick. Sir.
Hey, good morning, Steve. Thanks for having me on this morning.
Oh, my pleasure, brother. And a big shout out to the great Tom Hamilton, who hooked this up.
Absolutely. Great man.
Yeah, good dude. Do you go to his church, or you just know him in a different way?
Just know him from here in St. Johns County.
Okay, cool. So yeah, he's a good dude, big supporter. He's funneled me some guests, and they like one of the last guests he had on was like the guy was great. It's the best way to get guests is to have a fan know somebody, because then they're like, oh, I know this guy that would be good. It seems to always work out the best that way.
Sure, and that's the things I'm going to actually, when we're done talking today, I'll give you a couple other people too in executive leadership that are just phenomenal people and longtime friends and supporters of mine.
Love to have it, man. I say it all the time too. I don't say it all the time, but when I have a sheriff on here, especially from the South, I'm like, man, if we could get one of you guys to ship up to Massachusetts and take some authority,
I'm going to no comment on that, sir. No comment.
Yeah, the sheriffs up here it's a little bit different. They run jails, and they provide some services like canine if we need it, and do some other things. But it's a very old, like, colonial setup where Mass is a very old state with old laws, and they are kind of recused to jails and civil process. So it's kind of weird because everywhere else in the country, it seems like they always say county is king. The sheriffs are out there. They take care of anybody who doesn't have a police department, or they have a wide jurisdiction in the county. Up here, it's just it's a weird, every town has its chief of police. Even if the town has 300 people, it's got to have a chief of police. So it's like there's all these little fiefdoms. It's actually real annoying, like when you start dealing with jurisdictions that way.
Well, we have the same thing down here as I handle all civil process, civil service process. And of course, like St. Johns County Jail is right underneath my leadership. And the city police chiefs here, of course, under the Florida Constitution are, of course, their own government municipalities, but just a different way of doing business. But it starts, of course, with our leadership and our support from our governors in the great state of Florida. Yeah, that's great, man. So yeah, it sounds like you guys kind of do it. They're kind of getting off easy then. You got to do the civil and the criminal. We are, but it's been going on forever down here. Of course, the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office has been in business since 1821. So we don't know any different, just like, of course, when you were policing up in the state of Massachusetts and how the current sheriffs do up there now. Yeah, I suppose that's true. Yeah, I mean, you guys have the moniker of some of your citizens, which they refer to as Florida man. So there's no lack of excitement where you're working. No, none at all. But of course, as you know, our President of the United States, this is his home, just south of here in Palm Beach County. The Chief of Staff for the President of the United States, Susie Wiles, lives in our jurisdiction here. So just a lot of support from the federal, state, and local level. We're just blessed in the great state of Florida.
Yeah, it's really good, man. It is tough. Like, I'm just a Massachusetts guy. I grew up here. My family is largely conservative people, kind of embedded in this, the exact opposite of the way Massachusetts is. And it's hard, man, to pick up and move to a different state. But I tell young cops that. I say, listen, if you're looking to be a cop somewhere, go somewhere they want you and they like you. You know what I mean? Unless you have to work where you grew up and that's really your dream, try to find a state or a county or a jurisdiction where, like, they like the police and they kind of deserve a good police officer.
Well, it's kind of funny, Stephen. Down here in the state of Florida, down here in St. Johns County, we have a lot of people, as you know, that have left your area, with every state in New England and moved down here. And they've really embraced this aggressive, I call it professionally aggressive policing in here in St. Johns County. And they've accepted that style. And now that they're here, like, okay, maybe this is the way it should have been in the state I came from. So you have great police officers up there. You have great troopers up there. You have great deputy sheriffs. It's just a different time down here in the state of Florida with the support that we currently have.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've been on 32 years. And how long have you been sheriff there now?
So I'm actually going on my 6th year as sheriff here in St. Johns County.
Wow.
We actually have 4-year terms. You get elected every 4 years. There's no term limits except for my brother to the north, which is in Duval County, but the other 66 out of 67 are no term limits. So yeah, this is my 2nd term.
Wow, that's awesome, man. So are you 32 years, I always say this to the older guys in the job with me. I'm like, it must be nice knowing that you could just tomorrow call the retirement board and be like, yeah, I'm good.
Well, what's funny is I just told my staff that I am going to run another term after this. And the reason why I'm doing it is we're heading in that right direction. Recruiting and retention is great. I don't answer, but 5 county commissioners give us the budget we need, which is through the Florida Constitution. We had the first time since we don't know when, we believe around 1950-ish. We didn't have any homicides last year for the first time.
Wow.
We're one of the fastest growing counties in the nation. We are very technology-based policing here. And I use the term foot on the gas, zero tolerance for crime. And then also too that, do it with professionalism and you'll see what the return on investment is, which is community loves us, embraces us.
Yeah, that's great, man. It's nice that you're able to operate like that and just kind of, do the basics, like enforce the law and have people take consequences.
Well,
it's a
you
really
made a
novel
comment.
idea.
I know, kind of crazy, right? You made a comment before we went live today, and you talked about cops back in the 1990s. Of course, that show we all watch and laugh at. Well, the reason why I got into this job is that we just came to work and go, wait, we get paid for doing this? And you'd go home going, there's no better job than this. Well, I feel like we got that mentality right back at where it should be, Steve, now going, we can do it better, more professional. These young men and women that wear this uniform every day, they know how to do it right. They kill people with kindness. And next thing you know, the community embraces the techniques that we're actually using. Yeah,
I love it, man. It's great. Sheriff, can you take us back to a young deputy or officer, Hardwick, on the job? Can you remember like one of the first calls you went to that gave you like an adrenaline dump? You would have considered like a hot call.
I'm going to kind of bring everybody back that listens to this podcast and go, remember back in the 1990s when we were fighting this drug called crack cocaine and the war on drugs, which I think that comment's so stupid. But, back in the 90s, I was a young police officer. I just worked in prison. I had just got out of the Fort Bragg, North Carolina on active duty. I was just full of life and came here to a little town called St. Augustine Police Department. This is my home. This is where I grew up. This town here is the oldest city in the nation, founded in 1565. And,
wow.
So you'd say there's nothing going on here. I disagree with you. There's a lot was going on back in the 1990s. And I was a young police officer. I had just got out of my field training officer program in 1996. I was on my own in 1997. I had played Pee Wee sports here in town. I'm the big football guy. And my first really call that I remember to this day was in September 1997 with a guy named Reggie Blunt. His real name was Reginald, but he went by Reggie. And we had played, Pee Wee football together. And he was murdered in a place called the Bottoms, there was a lot of activity back then with drug trading and, a lot of guns being, produced and a lot of violence in this area called the Bottoms. And the Bottoms really was on the border of the city of St. Augustine city limits. And then St. Johns County, we're St. Johns County Sheriff's Office. So one of my hot calls was going to, I remember hearing the name on the radio. I'm like, okay, I know that name. Like I grew up with this kid. And I didn't realize it was going to have so much intertwine of my local community and even, like that. But I remember foot on the gas, lights and siren, going to my first homicide scene as a patrol officer in a marked patrol car going, okay, now what if I get there first? What do I do? So again, just one of those things that's always stuck in my head. And I remember it like it was yesterday, but it was personal too. A kid I played Pee Wee football with. So again, that's always stuck in my head.
Man, that must have been devastating when you showed up.
It was because I'm a local here, so I knew the local crowd there. It was in a predominantly African-American community. Of course, this is a very historic city, as you know, with African-American culture and history here, including Martin Luther King back in 1964. But again, it was one of those things where it wasn't processing in my head as like, is this truly a murder? Is this a guy I seriously know? What do I do when I get there as a police officer and not as a friend, not as another athlete playing with another kid in the local, athletic, association. So just one of those things that always stuck with me.
So how did you handle it? Did you call the right people and cordon off everything? And how did it go?
Yeah, it was. I didn't realize that, of course, when you call it a homicide, of course, here in anywhere, whether it's up where you're at, Steve, or where I'm at today, I mean, it's always a massive response, both the community side of it and, of course, law enforcement side of it. So there was a massive response there. I mean, I actually identified the guy because I knew who he was. I knew when someone said it was Reggie Blunt, I knew exactly who it was by face. Of course, and immediately, of course, our supervisors took over and waited for our homicide team to come out, put up the tape and stuff, and just had to grasp it to myself going, is this what I got into, is seeing people that I grew up with as a child, going to be, blood on your hands per se. So again, just always remember that case and went immediately into action. It was something I knew from my military career and my active duty military career, and just knew it was, I got a job to do. And the job was to secure that scene and make sure we hold the people accountable for that homicide.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, how did that impact you? Because like you said, you probably expected you might have to go to something like this, but being a young cop and going to someone I mean, did that rattle you for a little bit, or?
You get back in the car, Steve, and you grasp, what you're doing for a living. And it did rattle me for a bit. And it continues to this day of cases that I've dealt with here as a local that you run across and you handle and you stay professional and that's when I actually started learning as a young police. I was like, okay, wait a minute. I got to cut my lines between friends, of course, and foes, and, be more personal with my family. And maybe that's the friendships that I keep that I know that are loyal and trustworthy, and I don't get damaged by them per se. But, I'd taken my combat experience at the time I was young. I was just a kid, in a grown up job. And, but again, to this day, there's so many calls, when these questions are asked to me, it's hard for me because I've had a great 32-year history. But yeah, to this day, it always affects me of like, man, that was a kid I played Pee Wee football with,
Yeah, absolutely. It is funny in police work, isn't it? How that whole, you kind of got to fake it till you make it. Because when you actually get out of the academy, get out of training, and you are the authority, it doesn't feel like you are. You're kind of like, oh, I'm the guy now. I've been working so hard to get to this, and now I'm the guy. It just feels weird.
Well, Steve, I talked to a young female deputy sheriff. Her name is Madison Lombardi the other day. And I told her, the same thing I just told you is like, you really got to I said, the first time you get in that car by yourself and you're done with your field training officer program, it's like, what do I do with my hands? Because you have so much power. And I remind my deputy sheriffs when I swear them in and we put this badge on their chest that you are given the power to take someone's constitutional right to freedom away. And don't take that for granted, and I think we got to humble ourselves just a tad bit. But these calls, the sad thing is, and I preach this all the time, Stephen, you know this very well, is you handle that murder call and then you get back in your car and you go to the next call, the next call, the next call,
right.
Whether it's an 8-hour shift or 10-hour shift or 12-hour shift. And then you get home and you're like, wow. I mean, you got to grasp what just went on for that shift. And then the next day it starts over again.
Yeah, absolutely. That is like one thing that I noticed for me is if I go to a call that's like a more serious call, like right before shift end, it totally jacks your sleep up because you get home and you're just like, you're tired, but you're so awake because you just had to run on all these, adrenaline and whatever else. It's like, damn it, I got to lie here.
Well, it's the same thing too, is, that's one thing we did a little bit different, Steve, than what you started with and what I started with is, we have a psychiatrist now who works in this agency. We have financial advisors. We're very faith-based. We got a very, very hardcore peer-to-peer. We push, of course, mental health, mental illness, financial health. We just trying to make a better product that responds to those calls for service. Unlike you and I back in the day, you had to figure it out when you got home. And sometimes that was substance abuse and use. It just was the way we survived.
Yeah. When you're younger, it's like it's almost feels natural to have choir practice or go home and have some beers to put yourself to sleep. But when that turns into like the first years to like the first decade, you're like, well, maybe this isn't so healthy. I'm kind of tranking myself when I get home.
You get it too. And I've heard choir practice since the 1990s, for goodness sakes, when I used to go to those. But, one thing I think is now, back in the day, you remember this too as well, you'd see a 6-month-old baby drown in a pool, or you'd work a suicide that was, just atrocious and unforgiving. And you weren't allowed to talk about it. You just kind of sucked it up and drove on, and you didn't use any services. We didn't really have any services. But now, as the sheriff leading from the top, of a man who has been sober for 14 years. And I mean, you got to lead from the top and lead by example and give the proper, resources our troops need to survive. It's a surviving game.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that old mindset from back in the day of like, it's like you're not allowed to be not okay. Like it's, you're I know everybody's seen those numbers, but it's like if you compile how many bodies you're going to see or how many traumatic events a cop's going to see in his life and compare it to like, your neighbor who works for like the post office or whatever, they're going to go to a wake and see somebody or they maybe will find someone dead in their house, which is tragic. But like for a cop, it's just like boom, boom, boom. And it's supposed to be like, it used to be like, to suck it up. You're a tough guy. Doesn't bother you. And that's like the worst mindset. The best, I mean, it's so simple too. Like for most guys, it seems like, and gals that you talk to, it's like just being able to like recognize it's not normal and it's okay to feel a little screwed up. 80% of the time, that's enough
I have to agree with that.
to make you feel better,
For sure. And we've come a long ways too. I just had a deputy sheriff that just came back on duty. She came to us via NYPD. She works a task force up there. She's been a deputy sheriff with us. She's a phenomenal young lady. And then, one of her best friends from NYPD committed suicide and just put her down a rabbit hole. And I just spoke to her on the phone right before the weekend. She's back on duty with us. And she's like, Sheriff, I've never thought we would have these type of services. And you would think those big agencies are doing it better than us. And I'm not here to throw stones, but I feel like we can do it. I mean, we're over 1,100 people here in our agency, but I just think we're doing it better based on what I lived and learned throughout the years and listened to.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Yeah, that's the one thing that that is weird about U.S. policing. Like when I hear from like people from other countries, it's like there's nothing standardized. Like, you know what I mean? Like you could be next door to an agency that does nothing for their people. And then you decide, well, I'm going to do this stuff because I've noticed this, or from my lived experience as a cop, we need this. Doesn't mean the guy next door has to do it. You know what I mean?
No way, you get it. Yeah, you get it too. And I think that's what our product is here a little bit different in St. Johns County is we preach that. And I'll be honest with you, Steven, you know this, if everybody could go work somewhere else and then come work for me, you got something to compare it to. But if you don't, then you come here, you get spoiled like, okay, this is really good. This is great. And you complain about the little things when you should have went somewhere else and figured it out that they don't have these services.
Yeah, it's funny to talk to a cop who like finally decides to swap agencies or whatever. And then he like likes police work again. He's like, oh, I actually do remember why I like being a cop.
True.
Before I just wanted to quit every day.
Yes, sir. I totally agree. I haven't had a bad job in 32 years, a bad day. I haven't. Have you had bad days where you kind of work on, maybe I should be called to do something else. But, me as the sheriff, and you said it too, 32 years, I couldn't wait to get my uniform on to come to work today. I worked all weekend at events, and I could not wait to see my people and do something for my people today. And I'm excited about, of course, your podcast too as well.
Yeah, I can tell, brother. Just like when we were doing the setup, just the banter between you and your staff, I was like, this guy's having a good time. No one's having a better time than this guy. Like, he likes his job.
Listen, I love my people. My people are good to me. It's the reason why I come to this job and do it every day. I'm just so blessed, and I got a beautiful wife, and we've been married 35 years. She has lived this dream and with me the entire time through good and bad, because there's been some dark days, I promise you. And there's some days she probably shouldn't still be there with me, but she hung in there through my military career and through this law enforcement career. And I think that's what shows the falls in leadership, Steve. This make you a better leader, period.
Yeah, definitely learning from them and all that. So,
yes, sir.
Well, man, God bless you. You have something good over there, brother. I like it.
Blessed, my friend. Yeah, you're invited to a ride along. Anytime I'll fly you down. Come for a ride along.
Oh man, really?
Seriously, please, we'd love you to.
That'd be awesome. I'll have to bring my recorder.
Yeah.
Stick in the.
I'll put you in my task force on 95, and you will get out of that car. And you'll probably be working for me the next day.
That's awesome. I love it. Sheriff, can you describe the strangest or most bizarre thing you've dealt with?
It's so hard in a 32-year career, and 12 of that being in homicide and over homicide. I just had some of these crazy calls, but there's this one call to this day that, and if people actually Google this call, the defendant's name is Clint Horvat with one T at the end. And the lady's name that he murdered was Summer Smith. Crazy case out of Putnam County when I was in charge of homicide. I was the on-call, I was the assistant chief. And this guy had staged basically the murder of his girlfriend because he was running 2 independent lives. It was in 2008, right before Christmas. They were going shopping out to Gainesville, Florida, which most it's our University of Florida Gators. That's where the university's at. They were going shopping, and he staged basically a murder of his girlfriend because he was living 2 lives. So they were on a back road heading to Gainesville. He pulls over. His story was there was a distressed motorist there, so he pulls over, and then his co-defendant, we find out later on, comes up and shoots Summer Smith right above the upper lip right here and kills her with a single shot. Well, he goes into basically panic mode now, or fake panic mode, we'll call it, and he calls 911. Well, his plot starts to unfold because there's happens to be an ambulance driving by. There was a logging truck with a camera on it with a GPS reading on it. Anyways, long story short, we end up pulling this guy in who is our victim, who's reporting the death of his girlfriend, his fiance, and this story just unfolds. I worked it with the Putnam County Sheriff's Office at the time. I was with the Office of the State Attorney, 7th Circuit Homicide Investigative Unit, and we started working this case. And we, myself and my partners from Putnam County, knew that the defendant actually was with us. I mean, we befriended him. He would just hang with us and try to give us updates. And I mean, his story just was not, was unfolding on him. But the reason why it was a bizarre call is because the investigative work we put into this, to include myself in a ghillie suit, watching the co-defendant's house,
Nice.
finding the alleged vehicle that he gave us in the description. I was actually underneath it in a ghillie suit doing surveillance. And I look up and discover that the vehicle that he gave us was up on, blocks in this guy's backyard. That was the vehicle we were looking for, which was never used, which we never would have found it. And then we end up putting a listening device in the casket, the coffin of the deceased, where he leans in and he actually confesses to the coffin, to the casket, to Summer Smith while she's in the casket.
Whoa.
Oh my goodness. We put a GPS on the U-Haul where he goes down, and basically he had this affair going on with Summer Smith down in Daytona Beach area. And then he had his wife and his kids up here in Putnam County, Northeast Florida. It just was this bizarre case. And then the night we actually got him, I got him in the interview room and we unfolded this stuff. And he just sang like a bird and confessed to the death and the plot to kill Summer Smith, to include, he testified against the co-defendant that he hired for $300 to pay off his suspended license to actually murder his fiance. Bizarre. I worked a lot of bizarre cases, but that was probably the one that sticks in my mind to this day.
That is wild. That is great. I mean, listening device in the coffin, that's genius.
It was kind of this eerie night too. And I had called my two partners, and the funeral director in Putnam County called us and said, "You're not going to believe this, but your suspect wants to come do a private viewing with, of course, the deceased." And we were like, "Make it happen." And she was like, "Sure." At the time, Chief, I'm not sure we're going to pull this off. Make it happen. So my two partners went to the funeral home to basically do some things there to get it ready. It was late at nighttime. It was an odd night. It was foggy outside. I got a ghillie suit on and went and actually monitored his house and watched to see. He got all dressed up to the nine, doing his hair and, getting ready. And he comes out of the house and I followed him there. We had previously basically taken a casket apart before Summer Smith's body was actually laying in the actual casket. And we wired this whole casket. And it was one of those eerie nights. It was late. My partners were inside our funeral home. They were freaking out in there, because there's other deceased bodies in there. And then my brother-in-law, who was working narcotics at the time, had loaned us some equipment, some Ravens and stuff that we could actually do this thing. And then he goes in there, and this is the weird part. He actually leans into he actually confesses later on that he basically, he knew that we were just creative. And he basically feels down this whole casket, the deceased lady, to see if she was wired, and he didn't catch it. Well, lo and behold, our transmitter drops out during the confession, but during the interview of him later on, he actually said he confessed to the body and confessed to the murder of Summer Smith and apologized to her. It was bizarre.
Wow, that is bizarre.
Yes, sir.
The human mind, it can be so terrifying. Like that guy, first of all, $300 to take someone's life.
Oh my goodness.
No amount of money is enough, but $300, I mean, wow. And also it's just so sick that this guy would have a wife and family and think like, oh, I got this little problem on the side, I'll just kill her.
It's crazy because during this investigation, man, we just he was so arrogant and full of himself. And actually, one of his best friends, we actually wired them up because he would pat his best friends down. He would make sure they weren't wired. He was just, totally, he knew we were kind of, working hard on this case. And one of his best friends, we actually did a wire into a belt buckle on one of his best friends. And he makes the comment to this day, you can find it on national media. He says, it's all, his best friend asked him, why'd you do it? It's all in a day's work, is what he said. So we use that against him. It's all in a day's work. And he honestly thought, I mean, if you see the press conference in charge of, because the family was from North Carolina, they were big into NASCAR. So the family was very, very well known of the deceased. And if you look at the interviews and stuff, he was just so arrogant and just felt like he had us, me and the lead detective, which was John Murch at the time. He thought he had us and that we were unbeatable. And then the day we took him into the interview room and said, we know it's you. He just sat there. He's like, I mean, here's the bizarre part, or even further. The day that he's actually sentenced to multiple life sentences in Putnam County, he actually gets up there and he's like, I want to thank Rob Hardwick for being my friend and being so honest with me and treating me with profession. I mean, it was just crazy. Just a crazy case.
Damn, man. Job well done. That must have felt
great case.
So good.
Oh my goodness. I've got so many bizarre homicides, because we worked from Daytona to just outside of Jacksonville, Oak River, right outside of Gainesville. But this was one of those ones that was powerful.
Dang, man. Excellent story. And this guy's away for life, hopefully, right?
Yeah. Did I freeze up on you?
Yeah, I can still hear you, though. The video hopefully will catch up.
Yeah,
you're getting a little... Let me write down the time, because you are getting a little bit...
Yeah, like I can hear you well. Can you still hear me? There it goes.
Yeah, we got you back now.
Okay, good.
Yeah, man, that must have felt so friggin' good. What a piece of garbage.
To this day, I've had some phenomenal homicide cases, and I'll get a friend to call me and say, I haven't watched TV in the middle of the nighttime, and on ID channel, I just saw another one of your confessions out there. I just work so hard because I want to get that closure for these families and give them the full confession, and put the pieces of the puzzle together and get on the stand and put these people away and hold them accountable for their actions.
Yeah, I love it, man.
Yes, sir.
Sheriff, can you tell us your most intense or terrifying call? I'm sure there's been a lot, but just an intense call you'd consider.
I'm going to go back to May 9th of 2021. It sticks to me this day. I was a brand new sheriff here in St. Johns County. I had worked numerous missing person cases. I had worked numerous murders, bizarre, serial murder cases. But this one sticks in my mind to this day. And again, I was a brand new sheriff. We got a call reference to a 13-year-old little girl named Tristyn Bailey who was missing from a beautiful neighborhood here in St. Johns County. And on the way there, I physically told my wife that it had something in the back of my mind was bothering me. Anyways, one of those cases, long story short, she was not missing. She was actually murdered by her middle school friend named Aiden Fucci. He had stabbed her 114 times. He had discarded her body in a wooded area by her house. It just was one of those cases that just to this day, and I've worked a lot of deaths. I've worked a lot of high profile cases, but to this day, I broke the golden rule. I've become very, very close with her family, Forrest and Stacy Bailey. They're called the Bailey Seven because there's a mom and dad and 5 siblings to include Tristyn. But it just was one of those cases where I just, to this day, I mean, I know the circumstances. I got close to the family. To this day, I'm close to the family. Matter of fact, I was awarded this past weekend on Saturday night with their leadership award. So just one of those cases that's always going to be in my memories and to the day I die.
Yeah, I can imagine. What was the driving force behind this for the perpetrator?
Sure. They went to an academy called Patriot Oaks Academy. It's a public school here in St. Johns County. He had Googled, or researched online about how it was to stab somebody. He had an infatuation with what the body felt like to stab. So again, he just had an infatuation. He knew her very well. She stuck out, but what 13-year-old doesn't in her life? And they were out and about in the neighborhood. And again, the infatuation was really him wanting to kill somebody. And left the body, of course, to die there too. It was just a horrific case. She had, I think, 45 or 46 defensive wounds where she was fighting for her life. I mean, the tip of the knife was broke off in her skull. We found the knife and found the knife in a small retention pond. We had some, and really the reason why we solved it is because the community was phenomenal. And we took some doorbell ring camera footage in the early morning hours of May 9th, where you see the two of them going by, and then you see him just under an hour later going back by himself at a little bit more of a rapid pace.
Wow. So this kid is, I mean, obviously something's broken inside of him. Did he come from a mixed up family or anything, or?
He was living with his step father and mother in a very beautiful home in the area there. No signs of that type of activity. However, there were surveillance cameras inside the house that we actually pulled on a search warrant, where the mom actually helps him wash his bloody clothes. No signs of really a broken home. Actually, a very stable home for the most part, with a kid that just had an infatuation. I don't want to blame it on social media. I don't want to blame it on that, but we talk about these cell phones. These kids have access to the world, and the world has access to these kids. So again, just so many things in there. And he was sentenced to life, of course, as you know, in the state of Florida. You cannot be sentenced to death if you're under the age of 18 for murder.
Yeah, man, it is. It's when you hear about ones like that, or the one you had previously talked about, I always think of the demonic. Just evil forces at play. Because how else can we explain that? That is nuts.
You can't, and I don't want to ever give somebody some type of a legal defense, but you have to really look into the mind and and I hate to use this term, but it makes more sense. If you cut the mind and the brain in half and look and go, what is in there different than another 14-year-old boy? He's a boy, but he committed a man's crime and acted like a man. But then when we got him in our custody, waiting for trial, waiting for the court system too as well, he acted like a man. I mean, he held his own. Of course, we have a lot of gangs members that are in jail here in Duval County. He was held between here and Duval on a prisoner swap per se. So again, but you look into the mind too as well. It's like he just planned out a horrific murder, and it happened to be Tristyn Bailey was going to be his victim.
Man, it's so sad. That's nuts. You had mentioned let's get your opinion on something, because I felt kind of two ways about this. Did you see the Super Bowl ad for the Ring camera?
I did. I sure did. Yeah.
So I like Ring camera. I have one. It's not hooked up right now, but I had one at our other house when we moved. But it kind of creeped me out when they were like, we can access everybody's Ring door camera to help find your lost dog. It just made me think of like the surveillance state. I'm like, oh my gosh, Ring can go in and like just activate everybody's. I'm sure there's some kind of sign in, like you have to agree to let them commandeer. But I was like, damn, we really are wired. It's good for us. Like when we do like a canvas of a neighborhood looking for stuff. But
totally agree.
It kind of freaked me out that, because the feds could probably get into that if they wanted to with Ring, and not that they need to, but I don't know. I just wondered your opinion on that.
Here in St. Johns County, way before that Super Bowl commercial, we actually have a partnership with our community residential program and our commercial program where they can register. It doesn't matter what kind of camera they have. Steve, you might know what this means, but we have FUSIS down here. And FUSIS is that magical cloud in the sky that we pay to, which basically can take every computer-based or, any kind of basically media technology-based, and basically goes into like this aggregator in the sky. Those old days of trying to pull a VHS camera and trying to read those old VHS tapes back in the day, it's kind of over with. So we actually, here in St. Johns County, we want these businesses to register their camera. But the way it works with us is, let's just say we have a burglary that happened at 123 Main Street. Well, all those cameras that are registered here in St. Johns County, we call them because they registered with a point of contact, and we say, hey, can we go ahead and can you give us access to your cameras to pull that data down to solve that violent crime or solve that crime? And then next thing you know, of course, because I have a camera here through what they call Safe Touch. It's a local connection, basically like a ADA or ADT, a security type of thing. And I got thinking after this commercial going, okay, I guess if they want it, they're going to get it. And next thing you know, so it's too bad because, as you know, we have these violent crimes and we operate a real-time intelligence center here, but it's very, very similar to like a SCIF, like a military SCIF where you would get classified information. But once again, this technology, I had just a real quick and off topic. When I have one of those Roombas in my house and the thing is made in China. I'm like, all they're doing is mapping out Rob Hardwick's house to share for God's sake. And right. We just keep giving into all this technology going, we don't control our own destiny in life. We just don't. But unfortunately, it's like, locate your dog. I'm like, really? I mean, but we're old school here. If we have a crime in your neighborhood today, we physically knock on doors and say, hey, do you have any camera you can give us? And our community is amazing in St. Johns County. They give it up all the time. but we still do a little bit of old school to keep people's privacy. But it's kind of ruins of what we're trying to do in America. Is like, we want to solve these crimes, we want to help you out, but also too, I mean, what really information do you have in your own homes that's protected that the big government can't get to? I don't know anymore.
Oh yeah, I'm guilty as the next guy. I got the phone with the
Me too.
Google Maps and everything else because
Me too.
it's just so, you know, you go somewhere. It's like, oh, it's this time of day on this day. Are you going here? Oh yeah, I am actually. Click. Go ahead.
It's too easy.
Yeah.
And it's so funny. So Steve, even after that Super Bowl commercial, which was only a few weeks ago, people have already gone back to how they were doing it before. I mean, we got scared for a couple of days and I even forgot about it. So you just mentioned it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah, absolutely. I just an interesting opinion that you had. And I agree. It is. I mean, I love that you guys have it set up where you can just, it's in place and the only step you need to do is reach out and ask permission for the video.
Yep.
That is friggin' great. Because there is, I mean, a ton of crimes are solved by that. I mean, look at what's going on right now with Guthrie's mom. That
by far,
anything they have is from that friggin' that camera. You know,
that's it. That's all nothing else. Nothing else. They have nothing else. And that's what I tell my people. You know, it's kind of cool when you come down here, because you're going to come down here, Steve. When you come down and you do a tour of our real-time intelligence center, every registered camera in St. Johns County is on a master map on a wall that's as big as you can imagine, 20 by 50. It's all TV screens. And it shows you where every camera in St. Johns County is registered. If you decided to voluntarily register, it'll show you where all those cameras are at. So if we have a crime, especially a violent crime committed in that area, we know who to call. We just click on the camera. It has a phone number. We call on the phone saying, hey, we know you're a registered camera. Can we get access? Or can you give us the information in reference to a burglary or robbery or something like that?
Is that like Flock? Is it similar? Just a competitor? Is that similar to Flock?
No, nothing to do with Flock. It's just an aggregator through FUSIS where you register your own camera. You can have any camera you can think of. Every name of a camera that's possibly out there, we can get access through FUSIS if you give us permission. Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not familiar with Flock. I've heard it mentioned a bunch of times, but is that just for traffic? Flock. That's traffic stuff?
Yeah. Yeah, so we have Flock here in St. Johns County. Again, we're very, very strict on what parameters actually can be accessed for Flock. We're big about, if a crime has been committed, a crime has been committed, or you're wanted for a crime here in St. Johns County. So we can set those parameters. It's run through our real-time intelligence center where we have 11 people basically that have classified or security clearances that work in that center in there. So we're very restrictive of what we can or cannot do. So we were running vigilant cameras before. Flock has a better product. Flock is clear. We run them on public property. It's usually we're not trying to hide them. They're on light poles. They're on poles. So I run by solar. Here's the deal breaker. I stuck them on Interstate 95 where we have about 115,000 cars a day. I don't want these criminals in St. Johns County. So if you've committed a crime and you're wanted in my county, the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office is going to find you and we're going to pit you and hold you accountable, put you in a ditch, and then answer for your crimes. It's just the way it is. Don't come here if you don't like it.
Yeah, I like it. I love it. Personally.
Me too. Our citizens, we preach to our citizens what we're doing, but I'm not going to educate the criminal on what we're doing. That's not our job. My job is to make the people here in St. Johns County that pay taxes and live here to be safe and free.
Yeah, absolutely. Amen to that. Love it.
Yes, sir.
Sheriff, can you dig deep and think of a heartwarming or positive scenario you've dealt with?
I have so many here, Steve, because we've really, in my jail, we've reduced recidivism by 10%. I have a full-time re-entry, pre-entry outreach team. I have a homeless reunification program here. We have a co-responder unit. I'm not sure if you're familiar with those, but I have a co-responder.
Yeah, we have one too. That's great.
Yeah, deputy sheriffs ride side by side with licensed clinical social workers. They handled, they could have handled 200,000 calls last year, but 2,000 calls last year. They handled 703 in just one car. But I think my biggest thing for me is, I was so ignorant as a young police officer back in the 90s, and everybody went to jail, and I'm embarrassed to tell you that today. They had this little tiny thing called a crack cocaine on them, and we took them to jail for a felony and ruined their lives, some of them, for an addiction program. Well, fast forward to I became a high school football coach. I've been a high school football coach in St. Johns County for 28 years. I got a chance to make a difference in those young men's life that I took their fathers to prison back in the day, or took them to jail and they went to prison for selling crack cocaine or using crack cocaine. And then fast forward, I am in their coaches. I work at a Title I school where free or reduced lunches are most of our kids. And next thing you know, these parents that I took to jail and they went and did prison time, I'm getting a chance to mentor their kids and make it right. And that's where I'll never forget to this day. Those kids reach out to me. They've gone on to college programs. One's in the fire academy named Kenai Harris, who
nice.
His dad used to run from us all the time. And Just, I don't know. I feel like this day it's emotional for me that I got a chance to get it right and steer that ship and upright that ship. Where I just was a young, ignorant police officer just taking everybody to jail because there was no other answer back then. So that's my biggest. I got a lot more than that though. We're changing lives in St. Johns County. With crime reduction here, with recidivism reduction by 10% here. My jail population is manageable because we really invest in our community and getting people back in on their feet. And my mantra is this: when you come in my jail, I don't call it a jail. I call it a gated community with temporary guests, and we're going to make you into something better than what you came in as.
Yeah, I love that. I actually, the conversation I had with Sheriff Teeple over in Arizona was similar attitude, and I really appreciated it because he's obviously running a jail there too, and we often forget that like you were saying before, it's kind of like arrest them, put them in jail, and let them rot in jail till their sentence is up, and then come out. Obviously, that's not. It's supposed to be rehabilitation, right? So it's totally like. When I hear about these jails that have these like programs for people to become like barbers or hairdressers or learn a trade or get into some kind of routine, build some self-respect for themselves, get some self-esteem, and then granted if it's the right type of person, re-enter society and with a leg up. Your brain doesn't go there when you think about somebody going to jail, but there is just the real basics of it. You're going to have a lot of time on your hands. You're going to be sitting somewhere against your will. Imagine learning something or bettering yourself. You know what I mean?
Well, I think it starts with leadership, and I'll be honest with you. I'll tell a lot of sheriffs to sit their face. There's a lot of talk, a lot of smoke. They get these positions and they forget where they came from. And the only difference between people in my jail, and I talk about the 95% of my jail that have just made mistakes in life based on substance abuse, mental health, survivability of hard times. I remember this stuff. But my job is to make them into better people in our community. And then I think with that, you'll see a difference. Well, again, most sheriffs don't want to talk about that. They just simply say they're doing things. But here, it starts with me as a leader going, this is what we're going to do. I'm going to put the right people in the right place to understand that. I mean, I got a former addict and a United States military combat veteran who works my reentry program. And what better story to tell it than the person that thought about suicide? She has a dog now that's a therapy dog that's actually helping her stay alive. So again, just investing in your community and instead of talking trash as my fellow brothers and sisters do, doing it, leading from the front, lead by example.
No, that's great, man. And for when you're was it weird because you were the chief of St. John and then you transferred to being sheriff? There's got to be a big learning curve with adding running a jail to your law enforcement responsibilities. I always wondered it, and I'm sure it's different state by state, but when you become sheriff, obviously you're going to have staff and everybody's going to get you up to speed and show you everything. How big of a learning curve is it to have to manage a lockup?
Well, when I got out of active duty military out of Fort Bragg, North Carolina in 1993, I got hired in 1994 and worked in the Florida Department of Corrections, which is our prison system down here. I was still young, full of, life and didn't understand. I was still a kid, but I got a chance to go and see how inhumane the treatment was at the time during people being sentenced in prison. And I kept wait a minute, they're going to get back out and get back on the street, back into society. What are we doing for them? So I told myself, if I ever get a chance to do something better in life, I'm going to do it. I didn't know what that was going to be. So first of all, as a chief of police at the St. Augustine, at a municipality here in St. Johns County.
St. Augustine, excuse me.
Yeah, St. Augustine Beach PD is where I was the chief. I learned so much because I didn't know what a millage rate was. I didn't know what, sewer systems were and water treatment plants. But sitting as a chief over there, you do all that stuff, especially in a small agency yourself. You don't have the staff. And then when I took over here as the sheriff, I walked my jail every week. When I took it over, it was dirty. It smelled. Our use of force was through the roof. We weren't recording with cameras. Fast forward now, 5.5 years later on my 6th year here as the sheriff, it smells good. It's quiet as a mouse and it's clean. And our retention and recruiting is phenomenal in there. And then 95% of the people in there are people that made mistakes in life. And I'm one of those people in life. I made mistakes. I lived life. I was active duty military. I was a police officer. We've all made mistakes, whether that be drunk driving or just some stupid stuff like fighting or who knows. But you didn't get caught. I tell people, you just didn't get caught. So Look in the mirror, quit throwing stones, and be human like the ones that are in my jail. Next thing you know, we bought right back into it, and it's made a difference in our community.
Yeah, I like that you just didn't get caught. I think about that sometimes, the real dumb stuff I did when I was younger, and oh my gosh, it could keep you awake at night.
Seriously. Yeah. I mean, nothing heinous and atrocious. I always say that,
Right.
5% of my population is a heinous and atrocious crime, sexual battery, murder, robbery. I mean, that's a little bit different. But as far as like, drunk driving and fighting in bars and just doing stupid stuff
Yep.
as a young adult, serving in the military and coming back home and living life. Yeah. Look in the mirror sometimes. People forget real quick.
Oh, those young military guys don't ever make any bad decisions, do they?
No, not at all. No, sir. Nope. Not at all.
That is the worst when they're like, yeah, there's an AWOL warrant for this kid that didn't show up for his reserve training. And you're like, oh my gosh, this kid's probably drunk somewhere in Tijuana.
Listen, I was a paratrooper, in Fort Bragg, North Carolina, and I was just telling my PIO, and she's just a great young lady, and I was telling her the life we lived up there. It's like rock stars. It puts any fraternity or sorority to shame, but then we can pack up our bags and shift to anywhere in the world, in a matter of hours, and help these weak countries out. And I've been blessed with that, with about 2.5 years of combat tour. So I'm just been blessed, and had a beautiful wife who understood me and understood that I had some, demons and some dark places in my life after returning from combat. And
Sure.
just been blessed in life with great things and people that believed in me.
Yeah, that's great, man. I love it. Really popular question on the show is when you guys come on, you tell your stories and gets the listeners excited, and they're like on the fence, like, should I, or maybe they're like in backgrounds, or they're thinking about being a cop. They love the advice. They want to hear what you have to say, some words of wisdom you might have for them when they're getting involved or thinking about becoming a copper.
First of all, this is a front row seat to the greatest show on earth. I mean, think about that. It's a front row seat to the greatest show on earth. You get to see things that people watch on TV, and they watch whether it's fictional or non-fictional. They get to watch them on TV, but we physically have a front row seat to make a difference in people's lives and do something that other people God didn't select them to do. And then I always tell my people too, when you come to work, you put your best foot forward. You leave your personal, if you don't say you don't have a personal bias, and you're a liar. Everybody has their biases in life, and you leave those personal biases at the front door of your house, and you come and you serve these people that believe in you. And then the other thing I started off the show with is, you get the constitutional right to take someone's freedom away. Think about that, how powerful that is. And you just can't forget where you came from. And I'm a big fan of, hey, people deserve breaks in life. Regardless of race, creed, color, religion, sexual orientation, age. So, this is a special thing. Before you can apply here in St. Johns County, you have to do ride-alongs with us, and you have to do ride-alongs with other neighboring agencies.
Smart.
But then also too is I'm going to hold you accountable too. I was held accountable for my actions, but as your sheriff here, I'm going to pay you great. I'm going to give you great equipment, great benefits, great facilities, great training. You just got to come and be a great person. With that, you're going to sit in that front row seat to the greatest show on earth.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. Yeah, and they shouldn't forget too, like, you can screw up as a cop. The only thing you just can't lie about it. You just got to be like, you always turn out okay if it's like you screwed up and you're like, oh, I screwed up. Don't be afraid of the sergeant, lieutenant, or the chief. Like, just let them know. And 99% of the time, you're okay. It's going to be fine.
You're okay. But, I always tell somebody, if you lie, your moral character and you don't have a whole lot besides your integrity. And if you lie, of course, the defense attorneys are going to pick you apart on the stand, and you'll never be able to, wear this badge or uniform again. But everything else is correctable. You make that split-second decision, and nobody knows better than what we do, doing it for a living every single day.
Yeah, absolutely. Sheriff, it was an honor to have you, man. Really great stories.
You too, my friend. And hey, listen, you have an open invite. Please come down here and ride with the best agency in the nation. I'm telling you, you're not gonna regret it.
Man, yeah, I'd love to. We actually have family in Florida, and we actually recently been saying, like, how come we haven't gone down to Florida? I'll have to see how close they are to you.
Please, and you can use our studio for your podcast right here and do a podcast right from here. We'd love to have you here, and just love you to showcase how we do it here in the great state of Florida and St. Johns County.
It's awesome, man. Thank you for that, Sheriff. Like I said, honor to have you. Can you hang out for like 2 minutes when I do the outro?
Please.
All right. The great Sheriff Robert Hardwick. Man, great stories, man. I know this guy's got more stories too. I can tell. So maybe if the good sheriff has time, we'll get him on here for a follow-up episode. That would be sweet. All right, let's see here. This is a time in the show when I thank the Patreon sponsors. These are the people that keep the lights on, keep the boat afloat. I truly appreciate, starting with the lieutenant level. I'm talking about the great and powerful Andy Biggs. Kyle Roberts, everybody. Kyle, thank you, sir. Michael Roach from Roach Machines AI Solutions. Check him out. Thank you, Michael. the handsome Lane Campbell. Now on to the sergeants. Lane Campbell, Gary Steiner, Adam Mihals, that's right, Lauren Stimson, Jason Lau, Sasha McNabb, Sean Clifford, Tammy Walsh, holding it down dispatch. Thank you, Tammy. George Tessier, love you, buddy. See you at church. Dennis Carrasquillo, thank you. Scott Young, everybody. Dan Carlson from Burley Boards, thank you, sir. Doug and Kelly Newman, love you guys. Hope you're enjoying Wyoming. Raymond Arsenal, my man. Richard Tolles, keep on trucking, brother. Stay safe out there. The great Elliot Sykes. Brad Thompson, everybody. Clark LaCoff, Adam McMahon, Sheriff Ronald Long, thank you, sir. Zachary Pleat, the great Jason Labrie, Lisa Gano, thank you, madame. Sherry Finch, Eric Smith, I appreciate you, sir. Jackson Dalton from Black Box Safety, check them out. The great Marcus Johansson, thank you, sir. Brett Lee, ladies and gentlemen. Alec Wasik, Lauren Smith, thank you. Jeremy Woods, Tony Fahey, John S. Good, Caitlin Thomas, Jacob Martin. Guys, as I go here, I realize I filtered this wrong, so these are people that might have canceled. I don't know. Lillian Sandoval, Patricia Lugo, Shannon Snell, Jordan Herringer, Megan D., Adam Saylor, Shandon Reiners, Emmy Lahan, and Andrew Ledsman. Oh, okay. Right. The list is getting long and my voice is getting tired, but I appreciate that, guys. I appreciate you. Thank you. And keep in mind that the show is going to remain free so everybody can hear what the men and women of law enforcement are actually out there doing for us, so we can have a better appreciation for what it is they actually have to deal with. Thank you, guys. I love you, and I'll see you next week.